Welcome to the Flora podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Flora, and today we're going to talk about making more space for the magic to happen in your life. Over the last several years, all I've been talking about is helping you align your life by taking a tiny little 1-degree shift. And we do that by decluttering the stuff that gets in the way of you being able to take that tiny step. Sometimes that tiny step is changing the way that you think about things. Many times it's about changing the way that you think about things. Sometimes that little 1-degree shift is doing nothing. It's just stopping and pondering. It's stopping and being in the moment that is. I'll give you an example of why this works. Have you ever seen someone who is just a flurry of chaos? They wake up, they're already late when they wake up. Their whole morning is full of mayhem. They spill the coffee. They maybe even drop the mug and break it. They get stuff on their clothes. They have to change. They take a route that's longer or that's backed up. They get to work late. They're not prepared for meetings. Like all the things, like you name it, things can go wrong. They get home, they flop down, they pass out on the couch and like, oh, my life is just crazy. It's just one thing after another. And it's literally, like I said, it's this flurry of chaos that surrounds them. And they seem to constantly be in a state of rush, and a state of hurry, and a state of reactionary mode. And they just are overwhelmed with everything in their life. Then on the flip side of that, you see people or someone who's calm and collected. Maybe they always show up on time or early. They seem to never be in a rush. They seem to be extremely successful, extremely happy, extremely fulfilled, and it seems that they go at a snail's pace. Why is this? When we rush, we forget to hear our intuition. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that way back in the day, when I started online, so I started my business in 97 and did things in the community for years before I got online. The first time I got online was 2008. And at that point, I had been almost 10 years into my business of doing it on the side in the community with all the people that were in my space. When I got online, I started to share workshops and classes and things that I was doing. And my flagship program was a psychic certification program, which you can still get on my secondary website called energycords.com. But one of the things that I talk about in that program is how to tell the difference between ego and your intuition. Your intuition, people call that lots of different things. You can call it a God whisper. You can call it a psychic sense. You can call it your intuition, your high self, that gut feeling, that knowing, whatever it is, it's all the same. It's our intuition. It is that part of us that knows. That's just all it is. It's that part of us that knows. So when you rush, what happens is you are literally in complete and utter reactionary mode, reacting to all outside stimulus, as well as the feeling of being rushed from the inside. When we do this, we miss all of the psychic signals. We miss all of our intuitive knowings. We miss all the gut feelings simply because you are in reactionary mode and you don't stop long enough to figure out what to do next intuitively. You don't stop and truly think and feel and just be in the moment. I've worked with so many people who have lived their life on rush mode, They're constantly rushing through this and that and everything else in their life, and they wonder why they're so unhappy and so burnt out. And one of the ways that you can start to get out of that cycle of rush is to give yourself permission to do the things that we've been talking about in all the podcasts up until this point. Figure out what you want. That's it. What do you want? Surprisingly, if you ask somebody what this is, what do you want? Most people can't articulate it. Most people can tell you what they don't want. I don't want any more debt. Most people will say, I want more money. I want more time off. But when you ask them to be specifically, what do you want? They usually have a hard time articulating that. That is the first step in getting out of rush reactionary mode. What do you want? And really ponder this question. Meditate on it for the next day, for the next week. What do I want? For those of you who love homework, which I personally do, for the next week, your assignment is to get your notebook out or get your journal, and at the top of every page, every single day that you write, I would recommend journaling every day, especially for this work. What do I want? Write that at the top of the page. What do I want? And just sit and ask yourself, what do I really want? What do I want in my relationships? What do I want for my health? What do I want for my financial status or for my finances? What do I want for my career? What do I want for my living space? What do I want? What do I want to experience? What do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? Who do I want to be surrounded with? Get really clear about this. When you take the time to do this, when you take the time to just sit and say, what do I want? That declutters so much stuff. Your mind is going to be blown away when you realize how doing this exercise clears like 50% of the stuff off your plate. Literally, because all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute. For all these years, I thought I wanted XYZ, but really, I want ABC. Wow. So then what happens? Because you realize you don't want XYZ, you can stop chasing it. You can stop wondering and pondering about that. You can stop rushing towards it, where you can stop and you can pivot. Like that train on a train track that changes course. You literally stop and you pivot and you start to go in that new direction. You start to take those tiny little steps towards what you really want. And part of that is to stop and be in that space of that pause. To be in the space of where the magic happens. And that's when you sit and be fully present in the moment. And say, where am I today? This is literally like getting in your car and going someplace. You get in your car today, you sit, where am I going? What do I want? You check in with yourself. I want this. I want XYZ. Or I no longer want XYZ, I want ABC. Okay, perfect. Let's put those coordinates into the map or into your GPS or into your phone. Perfect. Now, instead of going right, you go left. Or instead of going backwards, you go straight. Or you go around the mountain instead of up and over the mountain. Or you go through the valley. It's a totally different journey. When you rush, you end up in places that are draining. You end up in places that you don't want to go. You end up in places that others told you you need to go to. And you realize when you get there, you didn't want to be there. You don't even like where you are. You're like, how the hell did I end up getting here? Because you didn't pause. You didn't stop long enough to ask yourself, what do I really want? We've all been there at some time in our life. It's okay. But right now, you have the opportunity to stop the cycle of rushing. You have the opportunity to stop the cycle of being reactive. And you have the opportunity to get into that space of really asking yourself, what do I want? In a previous podcast, I talked with you about having that clear vision for the future and inventing it. Invent it, like, what do I want in the future? Let me invent how to get there. Let me invent my future. And I talked about the reinvention revolution that I did in my summer group coaching. The next podcast after that, we talked about how to embody the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Part of that is pausing long enough to remember that vision of where you want to be and truly embody that. And then when you truly embody that, then take action. Then take that intuitive action. Then respond to life instead of reacting to it. Ooh, I promise you, this is going to change your life in a way that you can't even imagine. In a way that you can't even imagine. Oh my goodness. Think about the last time you stopped and just thought about what you want. When was that? Not ruminated, not had a pity party, not have that wishful thinking of feeling that lack and remembering the lack and going like, ugh. No, the time that you actually are like, what do I want? From an excited space of knowing whatever you want that you can get. If you're someone who has a challenging time thinking and a challenging time figuring out a different way to think about stuff, I'm going on my porch right now and I'm getting my book. I have it on the stack of things that I look through daily. There's a book from John C. Maxwell called How Successful People Think. It's a very short, very small book. Let me look and see how many pages there are. Just a second. It is 127 pages. It's a very tiny book. I would recommend getting the audiobook so that you can listen to it whenever and wherever. This book outlines 11 different ways that people think, or 11 different ways that you can think. This is one of the reasons why mastermind groups work so well. You have your own regular way of thinking, as does everybody else, and it's slightly different than everybody else's. Some people have one way of thinking or a couple of their favorites, so they kind of blend them together. When you go into a mastermind group, what happens is everybody thinks just a little bit differently. So when you present your problem or your issue, other people are like, oh, well, you're thinking about it this way. I think about it this way. And so they share their possible solution and resources that they have and opportunities about this particular thing. All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like, what? This is crazy. Now what seemed like something that was almost impossible to solve, now you have umpteen different solutions or ways that you could possibly resolve this particular thing in your life. That's what thinking can get you. That's what pausing for just a moment can create in your life. If you were my client, one of the things that I would recommend that you do is for the next week, get out a journal and every single day, at some time during the day, ask yourself the question, what do I want? Do a brain dump. Once you finish the what do I want brain dump, ask yourself, now that I have this, how do I feel? What feels different in my physical body? Do that for the next week. I promise you, when you do this, you will automatically and naturally begin to pause when you feel yourself rushing and say, stop. Is this what I really want? Do I really want this? No, because you've just spent the last week just reiterating what you really want. And when you recognize, I don't want to go to X, I want to go to C, and you see yourself walking towards X, you're going to be like, I don't want to go there. I want to go over here. So then you change direction. You change what you're doing. You change how you feel. You change how you think. You change how you act. And therefore, that's that internal shift that's happening that we spoke about in, podcast that we did several weeks ago. You change that internal space, which then changes where you end up externally. That changes what you get. That changes your results. That changes your mindset. That changes your viewpoint. So give yourself permission to do this work. And I promise you, This is going to kick you out of that cycle of being reactionary and rushing and feeling like you have no direction and feeling like that you're just kind of running in circles and not getting any results. This will give you the results that you are looking for. This will jumpstart your path. This will jumpstart your way to aligning your life from where you are to where you want to be. If you want my direct support while you do this, click the link in the show notes. Let's talk. I promise you, having someone on your side that can support you and redirect you with these tiny little 1-degree shifts will help make the magic happen even faster. I hope this serves you today. Remember, all it takes is a clear vision of where you are and where you want to be, and the willingness to take a small 1-degree shift daily in the direction of your dreams to help you align into a life that you are wildly obsessed with. I love you. I hope this serves you, and I will see you in the next episode. If you've been loving these episodes, it would mean the world to me if you would rate this podcast on iTunes. A 5-star rating is what I always aim for. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.